Hi there, Cindy Dole, and welcome to Hour 2 of Home Wizards, your radio home for all things home, garden, and life improvement. And as that song says, you make it all so easy. I know that it doesn't always seem like it's going to be easy, but I think over time you realize, after we talk about this enough, there's so many things that can be easy. And so that's why I'm here, to help you feel a little less stressed out about your home. And when you come home, you truly have that feeling. And it can happen. It doesn't have to cost a bundle. It can. We're going to find out because Sheryl Crow has an amazing home and garden featured in Architectural Digest, and we've got the guy, the landscape architect who made her little outdoor oasis so amazing. But anyway, the good news is that whether you have that kind of budget or whether you just have a very, very tight budget, there's so many creative things that can be done. And so I just love talking about it. So I hope that you enjoy listening, and as you are out and about enjoying your Saturday, or maybe you're working in the garden right now or in the garage, remember you can always go back and listen again. I love to put the shows up there because sometimes you can't catch it all, which I totally understand. Just go to cindydole.com and you click on the on-air section, and you can download the podcasts for later. We also have them on YouTube, all that social stuff. And by the way, I hope you also follow me on Facebook. In fact, if you go there today, if you go to Facebook, follow Cindy Dole, you can see right now the pictures of our next guest, Jon Goldstein's incredible work on Sheryl Crow's, well, it's more than just a pool. It's an amazing infinity pool that looks like it's going to go dripping into the canyons of Los Angeles. But it's an incredible hillside landscape project, and incredible what they had to do to make all this work. So we're going to find out, how do you get some beautiful plantings in your yard, regardless of your budget, to feel like you're in your own little oasis or Celebrityville, and how to save water at the same time. So that's all coming up here. So 888-KFWB 980 is the number if you would like to join in the conversation. Don't be shy. 888-539-2980. And hopefully, as we go on through the show, as you're learning things and discovering new things, hopefully you'll try some of them. And then let me know, email me throughout the week, because we always want to know what you're up to, what are some of the challenges, and what are some of the victories in the spaces that you call home. So let's get to it. Let's get to our next guest, because he has so many great things to talk about. And we want to use every possible second to learn about how to have a home and a garden that's, well, it's kind of like this song. But all I want to do is have some fun. Well, so Sheryl Crow sings about Santa Monica Boulevard, right? But when you see these pictures of her Hollywood Hills estate and that garden and that pool, that's the fun I'm talking about. So if you go to Facebook, follow Cindy Dole. I've got all those pictures thanks to Jon Goldstein, who did it. He's with Johnny Appleseed, a great genius landscape architect, and you've worked with a number of celebrities. But regardless of what they do for a living, you're all about just making that yard, that home, look beautiful and be something we enjoy, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is about making it fit the architecture, or fit the site.
Yeah. And so this home, well, first of all, how did you meet Sheryl Crow?
It was a wonderful...
Tell me you weren't like a groupie or something.
Actually, when I met her, I didn't know who she was.
Oh, really?
Actually, which kind of made it better for me.
Made it very charming to her, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I hope. But yeah. I was working on a home in West Los Angeles, doing a hillside and pathways, and a pretty ambitious project for me at the time. This is, I guess, 15, maybe 16 years ago, and the fellow who I was working for said, "My neighbor wants to meet you." And it turned out that he was the business manager of many musicians and many rock and roll artists and actors, and a wonderful guy. And I ended up doing his house. And so after I did his home, he says, I have this new client, and I wondered if you would come. She's considering buying a house, and it's got a lot of pathways and a lot of hillsides. And it's kind of like what you did for my neighbor, and I think it might be a good idea to just get an idea from you of what we could do. And so he and I went there first before I met her. And it was, I just fell in love with the property the first time I saw it.
And so you got to meet Sheryl Crow?
Well, I did get to meet her. She was on the road during the first time I advised them about the house. And when she came back, she ended up purchasing it. I advised them to buy it because I thought it was extraordinary. And she was just so genuine and nice and open to ideas. And this property is pretty hilly. And so
you can see that. It looks very complicated.
Yeah, it is. And it rises from the bottom of it to the top of it. It was really 3 properties that were separate originally. And
Well,
so
it's several acres.
yeah, it's pretty big. It's about 11 or 12, I think, altogether.
Really?
Now.
11
Yeah.
or 12? Oh,
and,
my goodness.
and it's only had 3 owners in its whole history, which is really neat. It's one of the
That
first
is neat.
places in Hollywood. And so the home she bought was, I think, an incredible example of a Spanish California home, which I love because I grew up in Los
Yes.
Angeles
Yeah.
and in a Spanish home. So to me, that was a wonderful, familiar
Nostalgia.
feeling.
Yeah.
And so then she had a neighbor that owned 2 other parcels. And he was a great restoration person. Like they were 2 craftsmen, like an old cottage from, I guess, 1896, I think. And then a craftsman, a beautiful one that kind of predated the Green and Green homes of Pasadena. That was from 1906. And they were both as they were when they were finished. He didn't change a light switch. He didn't change a fixture. Everything was maintained. And it was really, really lovely. So my goal was putting them all together.
Wow. And what an overwhelming project.
Yeah, it was
Huge.
And you would think you hear a rock star, like Sheryl, and you would think, oh, well, it's nothing to her. But these things take quite a bit of time and money to do, and Sheryl, to her credit, is very careful, and her manager, who I met first, also very careful and wonderful person. And so it took many years. I mean, the ideas came the first day. The first time I saw it, the way I work is I will walk in and look at a property and then imagine what's the most beautiful use I can think of for it. What's the most beautiful changes I can. And oftentimes with a classic home like Sheryl's, from the 1920s, the golden era of architecture in California,
Right.
It's what do you remove? What was done to it that was bad? Because they usually start out great.
Yeah.
And so this home had a lot of closed off views, a lot of hedges that were blocking beautiful architectural elements, a lot of walls that were placed where they didn't need to be because they had a need, to have privacy from the neighbor. Well, once you unify the neighbor's home with your own, the idea is how do you make them feel like one property?
Like a compound almost.
Exactly, exactly. And then, for a person like Sheryl comes the need for security and privacy. And so the goal was how to make her feel comfortable. Like you mentioned, on your lead-in, when you come home, you want to feel relaxed. You want to feel like you're really in a special place.
Sure.
And you can leave Los Angeles or all the pressures that she might have on the other side of the gate. And so for me, that was very important, to give her a sense of peace and solace, somewhere
Her
she
sanctuary,
Exactly.
Yeah, because regardless of how much money or how much pressure, whatever you have, we all need that same thing, and we all have some obstacle that we have to overcome to get it for some reason,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for her, it was the funny thing with these hills, and she's a dog lover, so she had many dogs.
Yay.
And they're very precious to her. And in the Hollywood Hills, obviously, what's native up there are things like coyotes and bobcats.
Oh, gosh, yes.
And we did see bobcats on the property.
Really? I
And we
bet.
would find deer, even, that had been, unfortunately,
Oh, no.
fallen prey to the bobcat.
Oh, no.
And so the first order of business was to fence and
To make
create
it
the compound.
animal safe, to make it Sheryl safe and sanctuary for her, but also peaceful and safe for the dogs.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Because, the property had incredible hiking trails that had been there for many, many, many years, that the original owners put in. You can hike on this property for over 1.5 miles.
You can get lost.
Without leaving. Yeah. And so the idea was to make sure that only Sheryl and her invited guests could hike on those trails. So we, and keep the bobcats on the other side of the fence.
How'd you do that?
Well, it was quite an unbelievable effort. We put over 3 miles of fencing from the bottom to the top of the property, which is 1,200 feet high. And in doing it, we did pretty well the first couple of days, climbing up the hill. It was very steep, very hard, but I have a wonderful...
All the laborers and getting all your equipment up there must have been a challenge.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
We had to do it all by hand. And because there's no machine access, it's all Santa Monica Mountain Conservatory, and so you can't drive up there. And so we walked it up and carried, my workers were amazing. They would carry rolls of fencing on their backs, which weighed 100 and something pounds. It was an unbelievable...
Made of mules or something, you know?
Well, that's how I think they did it back when they built the house. I was trying to figure, what did they do when they built this place? And they must have used mules. So anyways, we carried the fencing up, and eventually we got so far up the hill that she has wonderful water pressure. When you turn on your hose and you want to wash your car, Well, this property has great water pressure. Well, about a quarter or halfway up the hill, we opened up the hose and nothing was coming out. And I thought, oh, this is incredible. And what happened was we went so far up the hill that 300 pounds of water pressure wouldn't come out the hose. So we had to actually pump it and bucket it like cisterns from one to the other.
Oh, my gosh.
To install the fence.
Well, hold that thought, because we have a lot more to talk about in terms of this amazing, they're calling it Good Vibrations, the title of the article. Sheryl Crow's home and garden that's featured in Architectural Digest, and we've got the landscape architect here in the studio to talk about how he did it, and also how to get one of these kind of gardens in your own home and your yard. Home wizard Cindy Dole. We're back after this. Yes, that would be Sheryl Crow, and we have a reason, not only because we love that song and we love her, but we're talking with the guy that basically created her incredible little slice of paradise in the hills of Hollywood. Jon Goldstein did an incredible job as her landscape architect, and what a challenging feat. This huge piece of property on this very steep hill, and how to get all the materials up there, and then how to get a pool. Wait to hear about it. So Jon Goldstein, great to have you here on Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole, by the way, everybody. And so, John, this pool is over a 3-car garage, right?
It is.
That's got to be pretty darn well reinforced.
It was incredibly well reinforced. We had a brilliant engineer that helped us, several. And
it's earthquake safe and everything.
Completely. What's neat about it is the garage acts as a green roof. I was talking before about, if you're Sheryl Crow, you need privacy, because when you're home, you want to be home and not on stage and having everybody look in on you. And so this home, where we put the pool, she had a need for parking, which we couldn't remove and wanted to expand on. And so I thought, wouldn't it be a great idea to make the garages big underground so you don't see them? So we didn't change a thing about this beautiful natural landscape, because around the turn of the century when this place was built, they planted some amazing trees, none of which I wanted to disturb. My whole goal was do as little damage as possible to what was beautiful about the property.
A lot of beautiful cacti I saw in some of those pictures, too.
Yeah, phenomenal stands.
Really old.
Yes, yeah. And I won't knock wood because it'll make a noise on the mic, but that so far have evaded the typical Hollywood Hills fires.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so
Thank
that's
goodness.
always a concern. And so what was neat about it was the garage went underneath the pool, and the pool sits on top of it partially, and then sits one of the first green roofs I know of, at least on this level, that at the time, I don't think the word green roof was really an in buzzword in landscaping. Now you hear about green roofs all the time. But I just wanted to make privacy for her, and the way to do it was create a building that could withstand an 8-foot blanket of soil and trees. So now the trees have matured to the point that they're 25 and 30 feet up above it, and you'd never know there was a garage below it when you were standing on top.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
So the garage is basically a cave.
It is. It's underneath. And what I thought was, for a person like Sheryl, whose ears are probably incredibly sensitive, that the pool equipment should be silent. And so I took the pool equipment and put a room in that cave, 17 feet below the earth on the other side, so that when you turn on the jacuzzi, all you see are bubbles. You don't hear the whine of the motor. And, we all, if you have a jacuzzi and you're lucky enough to, it's a wonderful thing, but usually you hear the sound of the equipment somewhere.
Right.
What's really great up there, it's so quiet, is to have nothing break that serenity.
How nice is that? And that view, I mean, this infinity pool, it literally looks like it's going to be spilling out onto us who are driving down below somehow, in the hills.
What's neat about it is there's infinity pools typically mean that the water flows over one side out into infinity. It looks like it's a mirror. What's neat about this one, when it was the first one I knew about in LA anyways, or in California, it's a zero edge, which means it's an infinity on all sides at once. It's kind of like if you can imagine a cup of water with a pipe in the bottom, and water is spilling over this cup consistently on all sides of the cup instead of just one little mouthpiece.
And it's just recycling. And
yeah, and it's very green because the plumbing on it is larger. With pool plumbing and designing pools, you want to move a lot of water slowly. You don't want a high velocity. And so the equipment, the motor, can then run with less horsepower and use less energy. So obviously Cheryl's very concerned with green issues.
Way ahead of everybody on that too.
Yeah, it's incredibly unique. And Jandy, the people that manufacture the pumps, were wonderful in helping me design that system. And also, what's unique about it, and I have to say my crew did an amazing thing. There are over 30,000 pieces of tumbled marble that form the edge of this. They're little tiles. And in order for that mirror to happen, all of those tiles need to be set typically on a pool like this within 1/8 of an inch. They're set within 1/32 of an inch so that one pump can keep it wet and all time.
I have the picture right there on my Facebook page.
And
if you
there
go
they
to Facebook, follow Cindy Dole, you can see it. And it's stunning. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
But they're by doing such a careful job, it makes a much more efficient and more green pool because you don't need to run the 3 pumps that it has to make the effect. You only need to run 1. Wow. If you turn on all 3, obviously, it makes a more beautiful waterfall on the front side.
And I see a lot of cranes in these photos. I mean, again, you're dealing with the challenge of getting people and materials up into this very hilly terrain.
Cranes became a pretty frequent visitor to her home.
Yeah.
So that serenity was broken a little bit by the crane. But we needed them because we had some huge lifts of trees. Remember I talked about saving the trees?
Of course.
I mean, even in your own garden at home, when you're deciding to do a landscape project, I find that many plants will survive a move, and I hate to throw anything away because they're living things. And so we had some beautiful trees that were living where the pool was decided to go. So we dug them up and used a crane to pick them up. Actually, first we got a quote about how much it would cost for a real company professionally to do this, and it was too much. So we dug it up and moved them and then said a prayer and watered them and gave them vitamin B, and they survived.
You gave them vitamin B, really?
We did, yeah. I don't know if it works or not, but it was worth a try.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Well, I feel the same way about plants. I mean, I have some agave and some other different kinds of plants that were from my childhood home. Right. And it just brings back such great memories to have a piece of your legacy still there growing with you, It's
wonderful. My mom had some African violets from her mom, from my grandmother, that she, I think, still had. She may still have one that have lived, probably 20, 30 years.
I think a lot of people feel that way,
It's a wonderful way to connect to the past. And, what's great about her property is that the original person, this dentist who built the home, around the turn of the century, and a lot of those cacti and plants and agave were there, and they would divide them and spread them out over the hill.
Isn't that nice?
And so we used many of them because they're beautiful, and we were fortunate not to have to buy them. So we would dig them up and then divide them and replant them. So not only were the plants native on the job, they were native to her property.
They're babies and babies of... Well, you're listening to Home Wizards, talking with Jon Goldstein with Johnny Appleseed. He is an amazing landscape architect who's worked for people of all budgets, but we just so happen to be talking about this article that's featured right now in the issue you can see in a store near you, Architectural Digest, and what do you know? Sheryl Crow. It's a picture of her home. I guess that's the inside of her home. And then when you go out further into the magazine, you see her standing by this incredible pool, and that's what we're talking about here with Jon Goldstein. But in terms of the rest of the hillside and the planting, so you basically used a lot of the California natives that were existing. I see here in one of the pictures, it's on the Facebook page that I have in the album, looks like some flats of grass or some other kind of ground cover, yeah?
I did bring in actually a lot of sedum. I used a lot of succulent ground covers.
Because everyone's thinking, people have hillside terrain, like what are you going to do to protect the hillside? Because, hey, we got a lot of rain coming.
Absolutely, and you don't want it to erode. And so one great thing to do is plant ground cover. If you have a hillside, and obviously we all have to do fire clearing after your fire clearing is done. It's a great idea to at least get a good succulent ground cover. I like sedum. I like rosea. I put lots of rosea, and what's wonderful at this time of year, it opens purple in between all the agave, and you can see it from a couple miles away. It's so pretty.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about some hillside ideas and solutions for folks, and how we can, on a budget, try to get some of this beautiful look that Sheryl Crow has and other folks that you've worked on in their landscapes, right, in our little slice of paradise. Home Wizard Cindy Dole, thanks for listening. We're having more fun, and don't you go away because we're back right after this.
It's a cool place, and they say it gets colder. You're bundled up now, wait till you get older. Looking out my back door.
Yeah, when you're looking out the back door or the front door, you might be going, what else can I do to make it feel like it's a garden that Sheryl Crow has or someone else who's famous? Well, Jon is here with us, Jon Goldstein, who's a landscape designer with Johnny Appleseed. And you're self-taught. How did you learn all this good stuff? And you said it was a summer job that just never stopped.
Yes. Yeah, about 29 years ago, I was a musician in a band. Needed to buy a new synthesizer. And so I answered an ad for a job, and they said you could sell plants door to door. And I always liked gardens, and I always had them with my parents at home. And, my dad had a really green thumb, and my mom too, and my grandparents as well. And so I ended up going door to door. I had a wonderful boss that taught me some of the basics of selling. But he wasn't really a plant person. His brother was. And so he started to teach me about plants, and it was called the LA Plant Company, and I would be the plant man, and I thought, hello, plant man here.
Oh, how funny.
It was great. It was a great way to meet people, and I thought I'd meet people in the music business, become a rock star, and probably be touring with Sheryl Crow. But instead, I ended up mowing her lawn and doing the landscaping, which I love actually now. It's much more stable, and I'm so grateful to be able to envision and create gardens for people like her.
And you can sing while you're gardening.
Well, yeah.
Have you sung with Sheryl Crow? Tell me you've gone swimming in that darn infinity pool.
Okay, I have. Actually, here's the great thing. When we finished it, here's how kind she is. She had all my workers swim with her.
Oh,
which is the kind of person she is. She's just completely normal. She wanted Roberto and all the guys to jump in and swim with her. So actually, I have to say, I have not swam in the pool, but my workers have. And that was enough for me.
Can we go after the show here? We just knock on the door?
Maybe she's out of town. We can sneak in. I know how to climb over the fence.
Quick Marco Polo game. That's all I'm thinking.
Absolutely. But no, I haven't. I haven't sang for her, but and I haven't even played her my music, which takes great restraint because I figure everybody in the world tries to play their music for her, and I want her to just to feel comfortable with
it's all about the pitch, right?
Yeah, well, that's what Randy says. Dog. on American Idol.
Oh, anyway, so how do we then? Because she has this incredible hillside. For those of us who are thinking about the rain, and we're looking at hills in our backyard. How do we get smart about that and make it look beautiful at the same time?
It's interesting. You have to first stand back like you've never seen your property before, and look up at the hill and see what's good about it, which, if there are beautiful trees up there and they're holding on well and the soil never slips when it rains there, that's probably stable and good. And if there are other parts where you always notice that there are little bits of earth coming at you, that's an area you might want to think about planting some of the things I mentioned. And it's a good idea to alternate some deep rooting.
And tell them what you mentioned, just in case they missed it.
I mentioned using ground cover of things like sedum or rosea. And if a lot of times your hill gets a half day of sun. Another one that I like to use is Vinca minor or Vinca major is a wonderful ground cover in a shaded area. And then I'll use things like ceanothus or lavender or daylilies or agave, to mix in. And the key with a hillside to make it beautiful is try and make it natural. And what happens in nature? A happy plant makes a lot more happy plants to make a family. So if you have an agave, I try and make a mass of them. Yeah. Or if you have, a cacti, I'll try and propagate them and make a mass of those, and then have a tree. Create a focal point. Remember, stand back, look where your eye goes, and then put something beautiful there that's your star, and then surround it with its supporting players.
And you were saying that you had to do quite a bit of fencing. I mean, really, how tall is the fence up and down the hill there?
It's about an 8-foot fence
to keep the bobcats away.
Well, here's the funny thing: we put up the fence, and finally, got the water to the top, and got the fence in, and it was secure. And then we stood back and looked at the hill like I just mentioned, and all you could see was fence.
I was going to say, how did you get to look pretty then?
So then we had to paint.
Oh, you painted
3 miles of fence, brown. We made it the camouflage. That's one thing I was going to say. If you've got fencing in your garden, or you have all of us have walls, have fences. One thing we all neglect is giving yourself a backdrop. It's like if you have a house, you paint the walls first. Consider painting your fences an earth tone, a natural, or a calming shade that you can then work off of. You know what I mean? Plant in front of it. Let the fence become either recede and go away by making it the color of the earth behind it. Or if you have walls, you can even use a color that's, going to become integral to the house and bring it into the architecture of the house by painting it first and then landscape in front of it.
Blends with the palette somehow, right?
Right.
That's kind of a fun idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you're stuck with it, why not make it work with what you have? I was going to think you made it a living fence somehow.
I have actually. There's some projects where we've done some living walls, and I'm excited to say that we're going to incorporate a little bit of that technique at the Hotel Bel Air, which I'm working on right now.
Oh, good.
And we're doing some wonderful new villas as part of the renovation, and in it there's water features that feel like the original hotel. Hopefully, when we're done, and so in between the rocks, out in nature, when you have water, things grow.
Yeah.
So we have to do a little wizardry. We use drip irrigation and first structural walls, and then put stone in front of them. But these are things you can do at home on a budget. Like if you have an area and you have a stone wall or even a block wall, you can create living walls now. There are techniques you can use that are not expensive, and many of them are on the internet. You can find information about them actually from a lot of licensed contractors. I'm a member of a group called the California Landscape Contractors Association. CLCA.org is one place you could log on and find somebody to teach you about it. And they were very up on saving water and using things like drip irrigation and smart timers to cut down the water you need to keep your living wall alive. Right.
Because I'm guessing a lot of us, when you have a hillside, that's like the last place you're going to be able to water.
Right.
It's
so important to be even and gentle with it, because, about once a year on the news, they cut to, a hillside failure where a sprinkler stayed on and washed out a mountain. So it's really important that the system be put in and balanced well.
What are the worst possible plants you could have on your hillside? I'm guessing you're going to say ivy.
Ivy can cause failures
because we have them
heavy.
everywhere. And not only because of the failure, but because, a deer love to eat it up, and
I have to say, burning. Well, okay, I know that there are plants that can pull a hill down because of the weight of them on a loose hill. But I am more of the mind, from my anecdotal evidence, I think ones that burn hot are a bigger problem. So things like sumac, really doing your fire clearing is more important to me. And I am less scared of ivy than I am of things that burn, like sumac. It's so important to make sure your roof is kept free and clear if you live in the hills of plants that can burn, and keeping trees away from your roof line, so that, if we're unfortunate to have fire, the firemen have a place to defend the fire. So that's why I recommend using things like succulents if you're not on an incredibly steep slope.
And you also want to think of plants that don't require as much water, in terms of just being smart, like you're saying,
Absolutely. Native oaks are able to live on, you can plant them and they will survive on the water that we get from rain, provided that the first couple of years they're given a little extra help. So you water them deeply and infrequently, and they will be beautiful, and then create a wonderful little ecosystem up on the hill.
Yeah, we have several native oaks in our on our property, and we're so lucky because these are probably 75-year-old oak trees. And it harkens back to the day. Makes you feel like you're a part of the full circle, of California.
They're indigenous, and what's great is on large properties now there are actually laws to protect them. At the Hotel Bel Air, we fell under that restriction, which was actually interesting because I learned about it, and we put them in boxes and moved them and kept them on the property. And now we've added, I think, over 75 new oaks at the hotel up on the hills, which are now protected. So they're very valued, and it's part of California's legacy. Hopefully they'll create an ecosystem up in Stone Canyon.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about we've covered some of the hillside stuff, which is great. In terms of getting the celebrity garden look and feel, I mean, what is a celebrity garden? Everyone's kind of going, I don't know. I mean, the Oscars are coming up, right? We just want to, whatever that is, maybe the word celebrity is the wrong word. We just want to have the feeling of that, the cover of the magazine, whether it's Architectural Digest, which you're featured in now, Sunset, Better Homes, whatever it is. How do we get that look and not feel like it's going to be an overwhelming, expensive thing that we just can't achieve?
I think the first thing to determine is to look at the style that you want to create. So even if your home is very modern, you can use wonderful native plants. You can use 2 pots, can make a huge statement if you place them correctly at the entrance. Kind
of a Zen thing, just very simple.
And I think, gardens take time and money. You don't have to do them all at once. It's actually better if you do them over time. Cheryl's project took 10 years.
Did it really?
From beginning to end. Yeah, and we built a bridge finally to unify the properties, and so you can walk from one side of the canyon to the other over to the pool. And so, even for someone like her, it's a long-term process. So at your own home, make a goal and have a plan, but do it in phases. So, for instance, where you get out and see every day. I think it's important when you come and go from your house to be able to see something beautiful every day. So if you walk in that door, maybe a grouping of pots to the right or the left, that please you. And they can be perfectly symmetrical. That's one thing you often see in a magazine. A wonderful symmetrical placement almost always works. Or you can do a grouping that's eclectic if you have a more rustic style. And I don't think it's bad to imitate things. I think it's wonderful to learn your style by looking at magazines, cutting pictures and showing a person, show your landscaper photographs of things you like, or go around the neighborhood and go, I like how they did this. And then you'll learn. It's sort of like learning to be a chef. You try different spices until you find one recipe that you just love, and then work on that.
Well, I love having a style book. I mean, I'm sure that's something you have with your portfolio as you go out and talk to clients, but it's so... I'm not sure how many people you go out and talk to as a customer if they have that instrument, if they have even taken the time. But it's so great to get that 3-ring binder, get those sheet protectors, and put those just images that kind of take you away. And why is it that it takes you away? And then after you thumb through, you go, wait a minute, there's a theme. There's a reason why I keep picking the California natives, or I keep picking kind of an Asian garden vibe, right?
Right. And for me, you will see a thread. If you go to my website at johnnyAppleseed.net, you'll see a thread, but you'll also see that each of them are very, very different. Because as a landscaper, my goal is to listen to the owner and try and match their style. But there is a common thread. You will see a lot of Asian pieces. You will see native plants. You will see lots of water. And what you won't see, but you could hear if you were there, are music systems. I love to put audio in gardens so that when you're out there, you can listen to your favorite song.
And you were saying that was so important also for Sheryl Crow's property, right?
Yeah. Around the pool, I put 4 stereo fields that when you're floating in the middle, it's in perfect phase, so that if you're lying in the center of the pool and you hear a drum fill, like some dramatic, like a Phil Collins song, you'll hear it go from left to right.
Oh my gosh.
That's an engineer's dream.
The audio file.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we have another segment to talk with Jon Goldstein about some great landscape ideas and some great ways just to really improve that gardening space and going green at the same time. So don't you go away. Home Wizard, Cindy Dole. We're back after this. We're talking about water in many ways because, hi everybody, Cindy Dole. Home Wizards, we're all about making you enjoy those spaces you call home a little bit more, maybe a lot more. Who knows? Because, after you listen to Johnny Appleseed, Mr. Johnny Appleseed, Jon Goldstein, landscape designer, who's really done so many beautiful things, including making this infinity pool an incredible landscape design area for none other than Sheryl Crow. You can see it in the current issue of Architectural Digest, but you're all about remaking things that are existing and repurposing them to be green and be smart and using those things that are previously loved.
Absolutely. And, for me, it came out of just wanting to be thrifty, but there is something really wonderful about taking something that had a part of a property that was historically connected to it and keeping it there.
So you guys are being green. We have a green roof with this infinity pool that's over on 3-car garage. Yeah. You have been green because you've repurposed and made babies of a lot of the California native plants that are on the hillside. Yeah. You're saving water because of that. You've come up with some great irrigation systems, and you've also repurposed brick and the hardscapes. And that gets us to, it's so important before you even think about plants for your yard to think about the material, the hardscapes, because that saves water.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's important to always create a gathering place where you could go out and sit, in your garden and maybe eat there. And so a lot of times you don't want to be walking on grass or, getting your shoes dirty. Hardscaping is the first thing that I'll consider in creating a landscape. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to take you?
Where am I going to go? Isn't that key?
Yeah.
Another gardener, landscaper that I spoke with said that his advice is to first just go out and sit in your yard.
Yeah.
Just sit there. And where do you choose to sit?
Right.
Because I like your idea of what do you see first when you come to the front door or as you're leaving, because that's important. But also, where do you like to go? And then make that a focal point, right?
Absolutely. And I think, if you have, for instance, a patio, maybe everybody's got some little area where they bought the house and there was concrete that was poured, maybe in the 60s, and it's cracked now and it doesn't look so good. Well, that can actually be an opportunity because you can take that concrete, break it up, reuse it. I love using broken concrete for walls. You can stack it and create planter walls out of it. You could take brick. If you, say, for instance, have a brick area that's settled or tree roots have lifted it, now it's a hazard. You can pick up all the bricks, re-level it. You can even put it on a sand bed or on concrete and then reset the bricks. So you don't have to run out and spend thousands of dollars on new materials all the time. Or you might augment it. Use the brick, need more of it. You know what I mean? So you'll buy to fit it. And you can buy reclaimed materials. And it's great because it saves space in the landfill. It saves you money. And I actually do it because I love the look. I like how it feels to see something that's worn, that's been lived in, you know.
Well, I think for anything in the home, I mean, you don't want it to look like you went out and bought the entire collection
Right.
or all the plants that day. You know, you were saying with Sheryl Crow's home, it was 10 years to create this masterpiece in
Absolutely.
the yard, right? And you wanted to have that layered tapestry feel.
And thank God for her courage and patience to
Oh,
allow me
geez.
that. You know, because we came up with all the ideas at the
Yeah.
beginning. The bridge, there's a bridge in the article.
Yeah,
that,
tell us about the bridge.
The bridge actually was an idea that an architect friend of mine and I came up with originally, and that was where the pool was going to go. The pool was going to sit on the bridge because my first idea was put nothing in the landscape, leave everything original, and put the pool over the driveway. She does have a winding road, and it's the new driveway. But the bridge, you know, the pool, she could not agree that was a good idea, and so she said, let's put it over, you know, by the Craftsman House and put it in the earth and redo that garden and rework it. So what we did was we took all the walls. There were beautiful stone walls that were built around the turn of the century.
And what kind of a drop is beneath that bridge so people can visualize
It's
it?
about 25 feet probably in places.
Very
And-
canyonish. It's deep.
and you drive under it. And what we did was, in creating the bridge, we rolled 2 huge pieces of steel with an arch so that it curves up and over, and had to carefully balance it. And it was really an adventure making that because it was so big and heavy that we actually had to construct it and weld it on site because it couldn't have been driven through Los Angeles because the turning radiuses were too tight. So we constructed it there and picked it up with a crane, and it was a great day. Her parents were here and came out to see it. And when it sat there on its pilings, what was terrific is it didn't even need a shim. It was a wonderful moment when it finally sat where it was supposed to go, and it worked perfectly, and it made me very happy. But we tried to make it look old because all the stone around it was reused, all the brick was reused, all the wood that supported the deck came, you know, in part from the property. We did buy other wood, and each tree that was cut down to make the decking, I made sure that they planted 9 to replace it. It was very carefully ecologically managed. But I was going to say, you know, her focal point, that was a great thing for her garden. In your own garden, remember you said you can walk out and sit there at your own home? Well, in my place, it's obviously not 10 acres. I wanted to look out a window and see a fountain. And so through creating things, focal points for people, I ended up in my own wanting to create a visual focal point. And so making a fountain out of something as simple as a beautiful pot, letting the water spill over in this view.
Your little mini infinity pool.
Right, exactly. is a great simple way that we can all create that Zen feeling. And so I now have started to recreate some of the things I've made in the jobs, these various jobs, like for the Hotel Bel Air and Cheryl's home and John Voight's and Mark Wahlberg's and all these people that I've
Name dropper.
Sorry, they're on the floor here. I'm reaching down to pick them up. That I've been fortunate enough to work for. I've recreated those features. And my company is called Core Designs by Appleseed.com, and you can see some of the pieces that we have, and they're available to purchase, and you can use them in your own garden as a focal point.
Very cool. And even without purchasing, you can just go to your own garage, you were saying, and find something and make it into a darn fountain, or
that's how it starts. Make
that your gargoyle or your...
One of my favorite fountains we ever made was one of my workers found a log that was half cut.
Yeah.
And we put a little waterproofing in the center, and we let it run back down into a little basin that we surrounded with rock, and just down the center of this log. And it was fantastic. And
I'm curious. I see a teepee in this backyard oasis in Architectural Digest that's Sheryl Crow's place. I don't see any gnomes. Are you big on gnomes?
I've given my brother a few.
Really?
They tend to move around at night.
They seem kind of kitschy.
They are kitschy.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'll put them in the corner, and I'll come back the next day, and they've moved to the other side all on their own. I don't know why.
That's very Twilight Zone-ish.
Yeah. One of them talked to me one time. You know, I'm a little terrified of gnomes, but I hear that the new film that's out is quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, but I
No,
mean,
we
seriously, would if someone said, "Hey, I want you to help with my yard. Can we go gnome?" Would you say not so much?
I would. I'll tell you what.
It's
It's really
too
hard for me to
Disney?
say no.
Really?
I would try. I would
You
absolutely
never
try.
know. I mean, I bet you could make it
Remember I
look
talked
cute
about
some-
massing? I'd make them buy
Yeah.
about 15 of them.
15 gnomes.
Put them all together.
Why not 7?
Yeah.
Like the 7 dwarfs
Yeah,
or
but then,
something.
yeah, we can name them all. Hey, now you're talking. Maybe the owner could be
Hey, we got a picture.
Snow White. It'd be perfect.
Well, I mean, that takes us to, do you go too themey? I mean, you don't want it to be too cutesy, right? You want it to, you want to have some subtleties
Absolutely.
to your focal points.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I have obviously a big funny bone, and so I have made many funny things in gardens. But
I
yeah,
think
there is a point.
Whimsy's good. I love
Whimsy's
Whimsy.
fantastic, and you can be eclectic. And out in the garden, you know, the one thing that you can do, you can be a little stronger with color. You can put things that are a little kitschy out in the garden, and surround them with plants. And you know, you don't have to go. It's hard to go too far, but it does happen.
I love garden art too. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of really pretty garden murals.
Yes.
You know, and it's weatherproof and everything. I mean, that is so stunning and
It's
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful muralist do a mural for a client in the Pacific Palisades, and she had been a patron of the zoo, and so we painted a mural in the middle of bamboo. We had, you know, koalas climbing in one place. We had another thing. We took a gas pipe and looked like it was a python wrapping around the pipe, and you couldn't tell when you looked at it far away. It was really wonderful. So murals are a great thing to do with a wall space.
But start with what you have, and then just kind of take a look and see what your vibe is, right?
Absolutely.
Did Sheryl Crow ever say this is what my thing is, or you just kind of had a sense? Because she seems very earthy, and
She did. She has very strong ideas about what she likes and she doesn't. But she gave me
she never once said, "I want gnomes."
no gnomes. But she did give me free rein to come up with the concepts, and there was a wonderful collaborator about which ones fit her. And then from there, it's been a wonderful partnership. And I actually got to go and do her other home in Nashville,
Oh,
where she
geez.
spends a lot
Okay,
of
by
her-
now you've got to get us into the pool, please.
Okay, you ready? What time are we done?
Okay.
It's kind of cold out now.
All right. Love you, Sheryl Crow. Love you, Jon Goldstein. And your website is, again?
JohnnyAppleseed.net.
And we can see more pictures?
I have no H.
No
and
H.
Core Designs.
Okay.
By Appleseed.
And the
you can
Architectural
link there.
Digest is out there right now. That's gorgeous. Fun having you. Thank you for all the good info to get us smarter to start enjoying our outdoor spaces more. We can do this. We can do this.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, coming up next Saturday, the fun continues. We're going to talk with the couple that had their home redone by Norm Abram and the guys from This Old House. It's a beautiful home right there on this brand new earthquake fault that no one knew existed until just recently. And so they've had to make this thing completely retrofitted. It's an old historic home, and they've saved a lot of the old, speaking of repurposing, to make it new and interesting. And this couple, wow, they get to enjoy it. And so we're going to find out what was it like to work with the show and now to have this historic, beautiful renovation. So that's all coming up next Saturday. I hope you have a beautifully fun weekend. Remember to just go to the website, cindydole.com. You can listen to this show and others in the on-air section. Email me, say hi, let me know what you'd like to hear. And follow me on Facebook. Follow Cindy Dole. You'll see these pictures that John was talking about of the beautiful landscape and the pool of Sheryl Crow, right? So until then, have a great weekend, have a great week, and remember, the key's under the mat. Bye-bye.